Let's wrap up Kapitel 11 with some special uses of the comparatives and superlatives that we just were looking at in the last unit. So, of course, we will look over the Übungen from the last unit. Welcher Joker ist besser? Joaquin Phoenix oder Heath Ledger? And besser is our comparative here. Sounds very much like English better. Which Joker is better? Joaquin Phoenix or Heath Ledger? And then, of course, the answer will change based on your taste in Jokers. Okay, wer ist schwerer, eine Maus oder ein Elefant? Which is, of course, who is heavier, a mouse or an elephant? And then schwer is the adjective, and then the er, meaning comparative. Who is heavier? Ein Elefant ist schwerer als eine Maus. Of course, an answer. An elephant is heavier than a mouse. Ein Elefant ist schwerer als eine Maus. And then Sean Connery ist 89 Jahre alt. Und Dick Van Dyke ist 94 Jahre alt. Dick Van Dyke ist älter als Sean Connery, which is, of course, stating their ages. That's just normal, no comparatives there. But then the second sentence has the comparative, älter als, older than, älter als. And then we have Michael Jordan ist 1,98 groß. You can say er ist 1,98 is how you would like pronounce his height, 1 meter and 98, or it'd be just 1,98, which is of course 6 Fuß 6 Zoll in American terms, 6 foot 6 inches. Zoll is a word for inches. They don't use them there, so you wouldn't find it very often. But just to give you a reference. And then LeBron James ist 2,03 Meter groß, or just 2,3. Hardly anybody gets above 2 meters, so it sounds a little weird. Normally it's 1 whatever centimeters, right? Almost everybody is that. But some people get above 2 meters, and then it is different. 2,03. 2 Meter, 2 Meter 3 Zentimeter groß. LeBron James ist größer als Michael Jordan, so of course Michael Jordan is 1.98 meters tall, etc. LeBron James is taller than Michael Jordan. Größer als, taller than. Okay, then we have some with some superlatives. Also, we gotta look at these endings, right? We've got them in different noun cases, different situations happening. Wohnt in dem schönsten Haus der Stadt. Lots going on in this sentence. So he lives in the most beautiful house in the city. It's in the genitive, so of the city, but maybe in the city sounds better. Wohnt in dem schönsten Haus. So in the most beautiful house. So in dem, you can see we're in the dative here. And then the schönst would be like the stem form with the te at the end, and then you add whatever ending based on Haus, which is going to be the dative neuter with a definite article. That's the adjective ending you need. The most beautiful house. Nummer 2. Sie hat ein schöneres Haus als ich. So we're still with Haus, but we're not in the dative anymore like this one. We are in the accusative. She has, accusative direct object. And so we want neuter accusative, and with an ein type article. So that's why the ending is there. So the er here is for the comparative, and then the es here is an adjective ending. So she has a more beautiful house than I do, or than me. We sometimes change it in English. Als ich. Oh, that's an interesting thing. In English, we'll say she has a more beautiful house than me, which is like technically not right, but you know, it's fine. Native speakers say it, it's correct. But then you might say she has a more beautiful house than I do. And so imagine if you put mich right here instead of ich. A German would never do that. So the correct way in English is with I here and not me. And so it's kind of important to know for German because you would never do mich instead of ich here. It has to be ich. So more beautiful. Schöner is the more beautiful, and then the es is only there because it's an adjective ending. And then als, and then, you know, ich, and it's implied habe, right? Then I have. Okay. Ich nehme den nächsten Bus. Now this is, ich nehme den nächsten Bus is a good example of something I mentioned in the last one where This actually comes from nah, meaning near, but then what happens is you get to the superlative and it changed to den nächsten, and so it means closest, but in practice it really means the next. So it sounds like next as well, and that's really just the word for next. So the closest bus, it's possible that they mean the closest bus, but usually from the context you can tell it means the next bus. Yeah. Dieser Film gefällt mir am liebsten von allem, which is, of course, this film is my favorite of all of them, or I like this film best of all. A couple of different ways to say that. Am liebsten, so this film pleases me the most, preferably of all, which is my favorite of all, you could say. Was machen Sie am liebsten? What do you like to do best? I guess that can be deleted in English too. What do you like to do best, or what do you like to do the best? What do you prefer to do out of everything is also pretty good. Können Sie mir sagen, wie ich am schnellsten zur Polizei komme? So can you tell me, can you say to me, how I the fastest come to the police station? So can you tell me how I get to the police station, how I come to the police station? The fastest. Yeah, so am schnellsten is being used as an adverb type situation here because it modifies like how fast you get there with the verb being modified. But you have to take a little bit of liberties to make it sound good in English. So how I get to the police station the fastest, or you might even say, can you tell me the fastest way to the police station? And then the ich is totally gone, right? But I still think it sounds better. Can you tell me the fastest way to the police station? But this is fine as well. Tell me wie ich, how I come or get to the police station, and then am schnellsten is then the fastest. Du verdienst mehr als ich, which is of course you earn more money than I do. You earn more than I. You earn more. Verdienen is to earn money, so it can also be like deserve, but in this without context, it's earn money. So then I do. Als ich, then I. Oh, this should be than I. Yeah. Okay. So Nummer 8. Das ist die älteste Kirche in Deutschland. This is the oldest church in Germany. Die älteste Kirche. So we have feminine, die Kirche, feminine, and then we're going to be in the nominative because it's after ist, it's a predicate noun, nominative. And then we have definite article. So all of that leads us to this adjective ending at the end of our superlative. Ältest would be like the base form, and then the adjective ending. Oldest, the oldest church. Okay, so we're going to look at some special uses. I actually introduced this one in the previous unit because I feel that it's not really that special. It's a very common way to use a comparative. So I think it needs to be introduced right when you are first doing the comparatives. It's not something that's so rare. It's a very common way to use a comparative. So als, right? Followed by als means than, right? So der Mond ist kleiner als die Erde. The moon is smaller than the earth. Kleiner als. Die Erde dreht sich viel langsamer die Sonne als der Mond die Erde. So this is we're using it in a slightly more complicated way. The earth revolves much more slowly around the sun than the moon around the earth. So you can put als later. It's the same way in English where moves more slowly than the than. We're going to hold it off until after this prepositional phrase because we're going to do it the same way as in English. Die Sonne, around the sun. So that prepositional phrase is in the exact same spot as it would be in English. So then that so that one shouldn't be too tricky. It's technically it's taken away from its adjective, so it might be a little confusing, but you can just translate it word for word, so it's not that bad. Bist du älter als ich? Are you older than I? In parentheses, am. In English, we would say I am, or we might just say me, but don't try to change ich to something else in German. It would sound much more wrong than it does in English. Yeah. Immer plus comparative. So this is the interesting usage of the comparative. You can say immer besser, immer reicher, immer ärmer. So immer means always or forever. So immer besser means better and better, or increasingly better. And then we have richer and richer, ever richer. So because immer means always or sometimes forever, you can see how we say ever richer, forever, ever. It's this related idea. So you can see it's like saying ever better, ever richer, ever poorer. But this ever construction sounds a little bit dated in English, or a little bit poetic maybe. So the more casual version would be better and better, richer and richer. But in German, this is the only way to do it. So in English, we have several, but this is it. Immer plus the comparative makes that sort of thing. And then immer plus the comparative is best translated by repeating the comparative form. So we have a couple examples. Die Durchschnittstemperatur wird immer höher. The average temperature gets higher and higher, gets ever higher, but maybe it sounds a little stilted. Der Treibhauseffekt immer problematischer. The greenhouse effect more and more problematic. So now we can do higher, ER, because it's one syllable, right? But we can't say problematic-er in English. So instead of repeating that whole adjective, the whole comparative adjective, we just repeat the word more and more, and then the adjective. Solche Fälle kommen immer häufiger vor. Such cases occur more and more frequently. So frequently is too long to put the ER at the end in English. So instead, such cases occur frequentlier and frequentlier, which is not real English, but you just have to say more and more frequently. But in German, you just have immer häufiger, a lot simpler. A similar translation is used to express the phrase immer wieder, which is quite common, again and again. So always again is what it literally is, always again, which means again and again, over and over. So it's not a comparison, it's just saying over and over. Dieser Kunsthistoriker erwähnt immer wieder die Werke von Lucas Cranach dem Älteren. This art historian mentions the works of Cranach the Elder again and again, immer wieder. So that's just the phrase. You learn the translation for that is again and again, or over and over is fine too. And then this is probably the most complex thing you can do with comparatives, and that's je plus desto. That's the standard one, je, and then the comparative, and then desto. That's the most common one, but then you can also see versions with je and umso, slightly different. So they combine a comparative dependent clause with a comparative main clause, and so it shows like the more this happens, the more that happens. So je is a nice simple one, so you can see what's going on. Je mehr, desto besser is the equivalent of the more, the merrier. Besser just means more. The more, the better, which is what our equivalent idiom in English is the more, the merrier. So je mehr, desto besser. And you can see that it's not a word-for-word translation at all. It's like in English, both je and desto get translated as the, which they're not at all words for the, but in this context, that's how it's translated. Je mehr, desto besser. Desto only appears in this construction. It's not a word you would use in any other context. So, je höher die Zahl der Länder, desto mehr Abgeordnete gibt es im Parlament. The higher, so here's our comparative, the higher, the amount or the number of states, as in like federal states. It's Bundesland is like the states in Germany, so it's short for that. Desto mehr, and so here's another comparative, the more representatives there are in the parliament. Yeah, so you just say the higher, the more. Je, desto. And then, je größer der Fleiß, desto höher der Lohn. The greater the effort, the higher the reward. Lohn is, reward or wages, just whatever you're given back. So, the greater the effort, größer can be larger or greater. Der Fleiß is like how hard you work, effort, industry. And then the higher the reward, So you always see this comma too. It'll be je plus some stuff, and then a comma, and then desto, and then everything else you want to say. And then Die jeweilige Lösung ist umso wertvoller, je weniger Probleme sie verursacht. So this one is all the more, any given solution is the more valuable, the fewer problems it causes. This one, so je is also, in the second part, je is translated as the fewer, je weniger. And then umso is like the more valuable. I would say is all the more valuable, or it's that much more valuable. That much more is kind of a nice translation of umso. Yeah. So, and then we have comparison merely implied. So sometimes it'll look like a comparison, but they're not really comparing anything. It's just sort of an affectation. So we have, for example, eine größere Menge Rohstoffe werden exportiert. So größere means a larger amount. It's comparative. It's got its adjective ending and the comparative ending, but in context, a lot of times you're not really comparing two things. You're just saying, oh, it's quite a larger amount. It's a fairly large amount or a rather large amount. Yeah, so that can happen. And then die Wachstumsrate nimmt immer seit längerer Zeit zu. This is längere Zeit is pretty common. So a fairly long time, a longer time. Longer than what? Well, it doesn't really say. It's a pretty long time, right? I guess it's sort of an emphasis thing. Es ist uns schon länger bekannt, dass, so länger is the same thing, länger is very common to use in this way. It has been known to us for some time, länger, for some time, it's an emphasis, yeah. It's been known to us for a longer amount of time, for some time. And then superlatives that are a little bit unexpected are things like äußerst. Äußerst is just a word that means extremely. So it is technically a superlative. It's got that st at the end, but I don't even really think of it. It doesn't really work like a superlative. It just means extremely. Äußerst. So äußerst langsam means extremely slow or very slow, but don't worry about it being like thinking about how to make this into a comparative in English. It doesn't need to be. It just means extremely. And then höchstens, at most, at best, at the highest amount, whatever it is, but it's translated at the most or at best. And then höchst, lehrreich, höchst, yeah, it's just its own word. It looks like a superlative, but it just means, it's also very similar to äußerst or höchst, very most instructive. Just emphasizing. And neuester Zeit, it's sort of related to neulich, which neulich means recently. So like the newest time is the most recent time. So in the newest time, which is the most recently, meist or meistens, both of these are quite common, and it looks like most or mostly as an adverb, and it just means most of the time, usually. And then möglichst, also very common. So that's how you express something as blank as blank, or it has to be as possible. So as whatever adjective, as possible, möglichst schnell. So you can say möglichst plus whatever adjective you want, and that'll be as adjective as possible. Wenigstens is at least. Yeah, at least this amount, as you might expect. But it's got sort of a weird ending, but it's just its own word that means at least. So, die Forscher hatten eine äußerst schwierige Aufgabe. The researchers had an extremely difficult assignment. Äußerst, this adverb can describe lots of adjectives. Äußerst. And then, die alten Theorien waren meistens ohne wissenschaftliche Basis. The old theories were generally, they say here, mostly generally, what they say usually as a rule, without scholarly basis. Yeah. Okay, so then we have, we learned a little bit ago that you can take an adjective and make it into a noun. That was Das Unheimliche, the Uncanny, by Sigmund Freud. So you take any adjective, make it into a noun. And you can also do that with the superlative because the superlatives are just adjectives. They have the superlative suffix, so they're fancy adjectives, but they're still adjectives. And you can also do that same thing where you make them into a noun. So das Wichtigste is the most important one or the most important thing. You would say, what's most important? That which is most important. Das Wichtigste, the most important thing, or yeah, anything like that. Der größte, the biggest one. So that would be implying a masculine something else, right? If you were already talking about something that was masculine. But if you could do like das größte, and that would be like that which is biggest or the biggest. And then der kleinere, the smaller one. Das Wesentlichste, the most essential thing. And this would be very abstract, like just like das Wichtigste, like don't forget about what's most important. Vergessen Sie nicht das Wichtigste. Don't forget the most important thing. Or you could do that with das Wesentlichste. Vergessen Sie nicht das Wesentlichste. Don't forget the most essential thing. Don't forget what's most essential. And then die schönste would be the most beautiful one if we're referring to something feminine. Or you could say das Schönste is like the most beautiful thing about it. Das Schönste. That would just make it more abstract. And then you notice that the adjective is not capitalized when it represents a previously mentioned noun because the noun is sort of implied. So we had examples of this sort of thing when we did the accusative, and it was like, which sweater do you want? The red one or the yellow one, right? And so they still count as adjectives here. They haven't been made into nouns because the noun is implied. So, welche Medizin ist besser? Which medicine is better? Die billigere oder die teurere? Die teurere. So the cheaper one, billigere, oder die teurere, the more expensive one. So teuer is the adjective, and then the er is for the comparative, and then the adjective ending for feminine. Yeah. Okay. So we have the next slides that have your end of chapter exercises for Kapitel 11. Go ahead and start working on those, and I will see you on Zoom. And of course, I will see you in the next video for Kapitel 12. Ja, so, vielen Dank, schönen Tag noch, tschüss.